Alrighty, welcome back to episode 2 of Tales from the Q's Juke Joint, a personal tribute to Quincy Jones through the eyes and the ears of the listeners, the people of us, so we could tell our stories and, just pay a little bit of respect to Quincy Jones, who is the GOAT in music. And speaking of GOATs, I am next to one of the like if you go in the dictionary and you look up goat,
No,
his picture's gonna be
man.
there.
No, man.
His picture's gonna be there. I promise
The
you,
goat, the
ladies and
goat is
gentlemen.
Quincy.
Yes, the goat is Quincy, but we
Yeah,
have a second goat. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only HipHopGods, A.K.A. Baird, the Baker Man.
right. In the house, in the place to be, and
Exactly.
it's great to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. And the reason why I call you the Baker Man is this guy can actually bake really good.
Yeah,
I've
actually,
seen
you
the
know what? I made just as a side note, made some monster cookies. I don't know if you've had monster cookies before, but I made those last week, and they turned out real good. And that was the first time that I had been baking in a while. So,
See, when you come to Vancouver next time, I'm gonna have to hound you for those
oh
cookies.
yeah. I'll bring a shipment. Yeah.
Please, I'm gonna need more than a shipment. I'm gonna need like a fucking pallet of them. Yes. Okay, but yeah, no, thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
As many people do not know, this guy right here is responsible for carrying hip hop to the masses.
I
And
try. I try. Yeah.
let me tell you guys, this guy is known by so many people in hip hop. Chuck D is one of them. So this guy does not play when it comes to the music.
I have worked
Like
with Chuck for a long time now.
exactly.
It's a pleasure, like being able to shine that spotlight on all the classic artists and their new music. That is a joy, and it's a service that many aren't providing. So I'm happy to be that guy.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
you know what? Honestly, even just like a lot of people who do this, like a lot of people's selection is very different. So I commend you on like being really versatile and very diverse with your hip hop selections
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Thank you.
Because it's not just like one type of hip hop. You have different types of artists, you have different types of producers, you have different types of elements in each song that keeps it kind of different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. That's
Yeah.
important. It's good to have a good mix and a good representation of artists wherever they're at or whatever they're doing at the time. So yeah,
Exactly. So yeah, everybody go check out Hip Hop Gods. Like your ears are gonna thank you. Trust me.
thank you.
Your ears will thank you a lot. Okay, but anyways, going back to Quincy Jones. So, um, the reason why I kind of there's actually a reason why I picked you for this because you kind of remind me of Quincy Jones in a bit, where it's like you're very perfectionist on the music,
Mm,
and like especially when you're a producer and when you're picking stuff for an album or like a certain project,
mm-hmm.
you know the type of records that you would want to pick. And going through like your playlist, I kind of saw that I was like, okay, this guy knows on the back of his head like what would be the mix that would make it.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's what I would take from Quincy, where it's like when he makes a project, he's gonna think of like A to Z. How is it going to be
Yeah.
the project that is going to be the best creative outlet?
Mm-hmm.
So like
Yeah.
that's why I picked you to do this because you kind of have that similar style when you make your
Oh,
playlist, right?
I
So
appreciate that. I appreciate that. It's just in the moment right now, I'm thinking. I think that I got that skill set from making mixtapes and
mhm.
making mix CDs. But it does come down to the flow and yeah. I mean, you nailed it. So thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no worries.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like just because again, like your taste is very immaculate. Like, your taste is very widespread. So I'm just gonna go with like you're growing up through the eyes of like Quincy and like maybe the projects that he's done growing up or whatever. So like growing from like your first experience in music, like what was the first thing that you heard that was like a Quincy stamp project right there?
I mean, it had to be Thriller, and
Hmm.
and I talked about that on Top Five Vinyl show. Is that
Yeah,
Thriller? I think is like my first record, and I don't have it anymore. Uh,
really.
yeah, no, like what was that like early '90s? Kind of got rid of any vinyl that we had at the time, and of course
Mhm.
regret that now. But
Yeah,
Thriller was one of those records, and that's a perfect example of just a production masterpiece and Quincy doing what he does best.
exactly. And that album is like still like a lot of people still give it a lot of rap because apparently the Eagles claim the greatest album of all time, apparently.
Yeah,
But like Thriller's been marked that ever since it first came out.
yeah, it's just a staple. It's an absolute classic. You can't crown it anything else, and it stood the test of time. And man, I mean, yeah, it's just great to be able to or to have to you know I was there when it came out. I remember like the frenzy and everything, and Quincy Jones was a big part of that.
Yeah.
uh,
And
I
that's the
think
thing
when I
too, like
first
you
heard
grew up
his
with it.
name, that's when I was like, who is this? Even though I was so young at the time. It was Thriller was 82, right? 82, 83, somewhere in there.
83, I think.
So I was like
Yeah.
7 or 8.
Wow. Young hip hop gods right
Right,
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh man.
But yeah, definitely made an impact. And worldwide, that was a global record.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And honestly, I wish I was alive during like that kickoff of the album because when you look at like all of the archives of like that time frame, so much was happening and so much
yeah,
went into the marketing of that album,
yeah, yeah.
right? And like Quincy made sure that that album was going to be remembered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he made that formula ever since they kept working together.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because you have Thriller, and then you have, well, if you start from the beginning, it's like Off the Wall, Thriller, then you go Bad, and then even though he didn't do anything for Dangerous, it's like that little bit of Quincy element was still there with his music.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
absolutely, absolutely. I think that you can. I think Michael would have taken whatever he, witnessed Quincy doing and kind of took those techniques moving forward. And you can hear it, even though he wasn't involved. You can still. There's something very Quincy about that album.
Exactly. And even like for myself, I would say like History is probably my favorite album because that was
Oh
like the
yeah.
first album that got me into Michael Jackson.
Mm,
And when you listen to it, it's like even though most of the second disc is produced by Michael himself,
yeah.
most of the songs on there give that Quincy element on there.
Mm,
Like if you listen to Smile, Childhood, um, like if you listen to all those songs, it still gives like that Quincy trademark.
yeah, for sure.
So like his influence with Michael was unbeatable.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And he even knew that himself, right? He said that we were unstoppable.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was saying this to Top Five too in the first episode that I did. Like he's done a lot of stuff with like other artists as well back in the '80s. Like for me, like Donna Summer was like a huge one
Mm,
that I didn't know of
yeah, yeah.
because my dad is a huge Donna Summer fan, and so am I now.
Okay.
So 1982 or 1983, State of Independence.
Mm-hmm.
That song came out,
Wow.
and then right, like songs like that were really good. Love is in Control.
Mm-hmm.
Like he did a lot of stuff for other people back in the '80s too. So it's really good to see that.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look through his production credits, and it is like I can't even put it into
Yeah,
words. Like, just it's unbelievable the amount of stuff that he worked on and the amount of people that he worked with from
exactly.
all
Yeah,
music genres, from all over
yeah.
the place, and serious like real deal legends. Like,
Hmm.
it's amazing.
Yeah, like who else is gonna say that you've worked with Frank Sinatra?
Right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like looking at those, like people are still posting pictures of that session, and that session is like probably like besides him and Michael, I think that's probably one of the greatest sessions ever if you think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. For sure.
Because you have like a classic at that time, and then you have an up and coming legend, Quincy Jones,
Mm-hmm.
and then Fly Me to the Moon. That became one of his biggest records.
Just incredible. Yeah.
No, literally, and I didn't even know that until recently that he actually worked with Frank Sinatra. Like I
Right.
didn't even know that,
Yeah.
right? So like that's something that I didn't even know until later on. I was like, oh shit, Quincy Jones and Frank Sinatra. Like you would never think of that combination,
Yeah. And you think about
and it's
Quincy and how obviously it's sad that he passed and he lived a full life and did so much, and he's left us with so much. Like, I think even
exactly
even the biggest Quincy Jones fans, I bet there's stuff they don't know about or they've never heard before, and I think there'll maybe even be stuff that's released, you know, in the future that's really good.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Yeah. And he was still working too, like you know what I mean? Like he was still keeping himself busy in the industry.
yep, yeah, he sure was. He was a
Like
true creative.
exactly like him and Clarence Avon, I think those two are like the best examples of keeping the music alive, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And and they were both tight and you know they both knew the industry inside and out. They
Mm-hmm.
knew what to do, they knew how to play the game, and they still kept themselves busy even during their last days, right? So especially for Quincy, like he was still just doing music, he was writing books,
Yeah.
you know, he went on the Weekend's album, which was super weird, but
Oh
I
yeah,
enjoyed
that's
that, you
right.
know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like I honestly when I heard that interlude, I was like I would have loved a full-on Quincy Jones audiobook.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Which obviously we have access to now and I'm going to listen to it, but just hearing him is just like super incredible like when he speaks.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
When
Um
he speaks, you listen. Like you stop everything.
exactly.
Yeah.
No, literally he's that force, you know what I mean? Like nobody ever downplayed Quincy Jones. No one's ever in my recollection no one's ever dissed him, put him down or
No.
done anything to Quincy.
Yeah. No. It's impossible. Undissable.
No, exactly, right? And like coming from a hip hop person yourself, like you know the history of disses from A to
Oh yeah.
Z,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
That's why I'm just like Quincy would never be dissed, and if I would have known that, you would have told me
Right. For
within the
sure.
second, right? But even like even if you look at like Tupac would have never done anything to
Oh
Quincy,
no. No. Of course not.
right? Because they were tight for a little bit, despite Tupac being the person that he was,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And especially for hip hop, like Quincy was very much respected in the hip hop community.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Absolutely. And he had a tremendous amount of respect for the hip hop community.
exactly,
Yeah, which is just he embraced hip hop. Like for
exactly.
me, I think of Back on the Block, where on the title track he's
Mm.
got Ice, like my favorites, like Ice T, Melly Mel, Cool Mo D, and Big
Oh
Daddy Kane. Like
no, like
it doesn't get
ugh.
any better than that.
No, exactly. And I feel like he's the only person at the time that you can call and be like, "Hey, I'm doing a record like this," and every single person would stop what they're doing and
Yes.
be like, "I'm going to Quincy."
Oh yeah, you look at the track list on Back on the Block and Q's Juke Joint, and it's like everybody showed up.
Oh, like it was amazing. It's funny because I was listening to Juke Joint yesterday, and like just the features on there is incredible. Like you have Brandy singing "Rock with You."
Mm-hmm. Featuring Heavy D
That
on there.
yeah, with Heavy D rap.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't think of that.
No, you wouldn't think of that. And she did a great job. Like Rock with You is my favorite Michael Jackson song, and she did it justice. So
Exactly. Like, it made it sound like its own song. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, they
Like
took their
that's
own
what I
spin,
loved about
and
it.
it worked really well.
I will have to say though, the introduction of Tamia on the album is probably my favorite.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because just I think when we talk about Quincy, that's the Quincy that I love the most is him getting a new artist like that
Mm-hmm.
and just getting them to kind of do what they want, what they do, but just make them explode.
Yeah.
Because that song wasn't even hers in the beginning; it was for I want to say Mika Paris,
Oh
a
really?
UK singer.
Oh
Yes. So that song wasn't even for her.
wow.
It was a cover that was initially done, and I think Rod Temperton suggested it.
Okay. Yeah.
So once that song came out, it was like, it's such a different song compared
Mm-hmm.
to the original,
Yeah. Well,
and especially because, yeah,
I was just gonna say, you think about him like championing, new talent. Like Tevin Campbell on Back in the Block was like 13 years old or something, right? 13, 14, like
yeah,
really young. And I think
yeah, he was very young.
that was his first record, wasn't it?
I believe so. Yeah, that was his
Yeah,
first
which
appearance.
is like wild. Like what a way
Exactly,
to
right? Like
start.
exactly, like if Quincy Jones put a stamp on you, you knew that like you were going to be certified a hit right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, you're golden.
Exactly. But no, even like along with Tamia, you had like Funkmaster Flex on the album, you had Gloria Estefan, you had Shaka Khan.
Yep,
It's like a big melting pot of the different types of music that was not only popular, but that was in everyone's ear during that time frame.
yep.
And again, to have like Gloria Estefan and Funkmaster Flex on an album, that's kind of just like, how in the hell are you gonna do that,
It's wild. Yeah.
right? And like, no, it's just like the way you look at like how he's compiled all these records. It's like, how does he know how to have this person on this record and how to have this rapper on this record? You know what I mean?
And that many people on a record. Like the
Exactly.
Stomped track, just as an example, which is again
Yes.
one of my favorites. I got to look at the whole list of people here. So Yo
Oh,
Yo, Coolio, the Loonies, Melly Mel, Mr. X, Shaquille O'Neal, Shaka Khan, Charlie Wilson, and I think there's someone else that I actually didn't write down. Maybe it's just the cast of Stomped, but that
yeah. I
that
think
joint's
the cast
crazy.
is, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Like that's pretty much We Are the World, 1996.
right.
Minus the message, but
Yeah,
it's pretty much the same essence, right?
yeah.
Like where you have like a big ensemble cast and everyone's just there for it.
Yeah, and he made it work. Like there's other producers that, well, I mean, I don't know who else can do what he did. And I was thinking about that this morning. There's
Hmm.
really there's really no one that has been able to do what he did in terms of bringing that level of talent and that much talent together just on one track. It's
Exactly.
unheard of.
Exactly. And like if you look at like music now, it's kind of hard to get even one person in a studio
Yeah, and
because it's
that's
always
another
something.
thing. Is I
Yeah.
mean, I would think for the most part, all these people were in the studio together doing this. It's not like they were emailing verses or anything, you know?
Exactly. Like it was just like the 90s was a different time too, which was very much like you were really involved in it personally with the music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right? It's not like where you're just zooming and sending verses off of emails like you're saying. It's like you're actually going in the studio. If you're not able to go in and record with the same person, you're still in the studio regardless.
yeah,
But, just having that community essence in one setting, it's like a huge deal, especially when you're composing a track like Stomp, you know what I mean?
yeah. Incredible.
See, I always think about like the recording sessions of that. I always feel like Quincy must have like lost his mind that day.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because like you just have like a bunch of like big rappers, and you have like
Yeah,
a musical cast, and you have some divas, and then all of them just coming together. Someone's probably like, "Oh, I'm not singing this part, or I'm not doing this part."
yeah.
So, I get like the fact that he has patience with that type of stuff too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of artists and musicians are very picky with their work, and like how perfectionist type they want their work to sound,
That's
right?
right.
So,
Yep,
and I guess that comes from being with Quincy because he teaches you that along the side, right?
for
So,
sure. Yeah, lessons are
yeah,
taught in those sessions. Absolutely. I think
exactly.
anyone that was ever in a session with Quincy would have taken something away. It wasn't like they just came in, did their thing and left. Like I think that you would really marinate in that. You'd want to be
Exactly.
around him as much as possible just to soak up whatever, magic that he's putting out there that day.
Exactly. Even if you don't even work with him, even just when you meet him, like there's always something about him that you take away from him, from what
Mm-hmm.
I've seen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the girl group Allure, Mariah Carey's girl group from like the 90s.
I know of them. I don't have any of their music, but
Okay,
yeah.
but like yeah, they posted a little tribute for Quincy, and one of the stories that they said was they he kept calling them En Vogue.
Oh,
So, and he made it as a joke to them every time they saw each other. So he made that like known to them that like that's gonna be the way that it's going to be.
yeah.
And he was always just smiles with the girls, and like even every single post that I've read with him is like he's never been sour to anybody.
Right. Yeah.
And he's always like, even if you haven't worked in the studio with him, he's always left you with something no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something that I've always admired about him. He's impressionable, and he's always left an everlasting impression on you.
Definitely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. But my next question, so you're a film geek.
Yeah. A little bit. A little bit.
I'm gonna put an emphasis on a little bit and maximize it because I already know this man stays glued to the TV all the time.
Yeah.
but because Quincy's done a lot of like film projects as well. Like, is there any projects that in film that you would say like had a big impact on you that Quincy has done or that like you've known about?
I didn't even look at film stuff that he's done leading up to this. I should have. So you've got me. I'm like I'm stuck. I'm stuck. Damn.
Well, because like I was saying to top five, like the color purple, he did the
Yeah.
composition for the music,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So, like, just his vision, not even for like albums, it's like even for film, it's like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. The score.
Like the fact that
Yeah.
he's able to do scores like that, like
Yeah.
that's not something a lot of people can do,
Right. Yeah.
right? So like in like Fresh Prince of Bel Air, like how that
Oh, of
became like a
course.
huge
Of course. Yeah. Fresh
phenomenon
Prince. I
too,
mean,
right?
my God, that's just. I mean, it's just one of my all-time favorites. It just like literally is making me smile right now.
Yeah,
Just thinking about it. Like, yeah.
no, it's funny because every single person has a memory attached to that show,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? Like every single person in North America or around the world has heard of it or at least seen one episode of the show,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? And even my parents, they're Hindu. They've watched the show ever since it first aired,
Yeah.
and they've loved it ever since, right? So like that show's done so much for people where it's like we didn't even think of it as like a Quincy Jones thing until like later on, or like we've seen pictures of him on the set,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And like technically it was like a little bit of a giveaway because of the guest stars that were on the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure.
Because like you had Tevin Campbell who he worked with.
Yep.
Um, who else did he have in that show? He had Boys to Men, obviously, which obviously Quincy Jones worked with as well. Like there was a bunch of people that Quincy had ties with that are like, hey, you want to be on the show?
Yeah. That was event TV. I mean, that was back when you would. Oh, the show's on at 8. Oh, I'm gonna like, plant myself in front of the TV. I don't want to miss it. Or if you
Yeah,
have to, you set the VCR. But man, I mean, yeah, Fresh Prince, man, what a show! What a show!
yeah. I think for me, In the House was probably one of my favorites
Okay, yeah,
because that's another Quincy one that he did.
yeah, yep,
Because LL Cool J and Debbie Allen and that was a great cast too. I love that show.
yeah,
Yeah, but it like again, it's just amazing to look at Quincy and like how there's so much stuff that he's done that like not a lot of people know about, and even for me, like I'm still learning it too.
yeah. He was a monster, multi-talented individual. Like, and again, there's not really a proper label for a guy like that. It's just incredible. He had his hand in everything, and he did everything so well too. You know what I mean? Like he
Yeah,
was never going through the motions on stuff. He was whatever he was doing it at like a top tier level.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think honestly, we missed out on a Quincy masterclass.
Man. Yeah. Right.
I think that would have definitely been something a lot of people would have done
Oh yeah. It would have been just massive. Yeah.
because he's already published so much books and he's spread so much information about keeping your artistry intact and keeping your music at the best way possible that this information just needs to be consistently studied.
Oh yeah. Yeah. 1,000%. Like they should be have like college classes on his work.
Exactly. Like if I'm being honest with you, I've seen like Luke Fiasco get a college course. I don't really think he needs one if I'm being honest with
Huh.
you.
Really?
Yeah, he's apparently teaching at one of the colleges in the States, but I'm like we could have had someone like bigger kind of
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. Huh. Uh,
Like I get the intention, but it's also just like
yeah.
yeah. You get it. You get it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get
I
it.
get.
You
I
get it.
get.
You get it. I see the behind the smile,
Right.
trust me.
Yeah.
I see another podcast of something else coming out after this.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, no, so like just was there anything that you wanted to add about Quincy at all? Like a personal memory or like just anything that like has inspired you from Quincy or anything at all?
um. I mean, offhand, there isn't. But I mean, Q's Juke Joint. For me, I was doing college radio at the time when that album came out, and obviously we played it, and I don't know. Like I see that album and it like it's one of those albums that like takes me back to that time period. I can like clearly visualize that. And I don't know. I mean, the record was great, and again, I mentioned it, but Stomp was like that was my joint.
Yeah, no, that's everybody's joint. Trust
Yeah.
me, I'm trying to get the single for that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. That's another thing. I moved like a little over a month ago, so I have Back on the Block. I have Q's Juke Joint. I have the Stomp single, but I can't find them, and it's driving me crazy.
Oh,
So they're here
it's the
somewhere. Normally
last
I'd be
name
like holding
problem.
up the props and everything, but I am propped
Yeah.
up today. Yeah.
Oh, no, trust me, I already know that you're propped up. There's already so much stuff that I'm trying to get off of you anyways, so.
Right, right, right. Oh, speaking of, I mean, I guess we could talk about this afterwards, but I have some stuff to mail you.
Okay, well,
I got some gems for you.
I'm blessed. That's all I gotta say, I'm blessed.
Yeah. So there you go.
Okay, well, we will definitely talk after this
Yeah,
then.
yeah, yeah. And Quincy
Okay,
Jones
well,
forever. That goes without saying. I mean, he will live on through the multi mediums that he touched. I mean, you know, it's
exactly.
it's pretty remarkable. His life and his
No,
music and his
exactly.
work in general is just it's to be celebrated and acknowledged and studied and yeah, I can't say enough good things about Quincy Jones. So yeah,
Well, that's good. That's what I came here for.
yeah,
So hopefully, I get that through everybody's.
yeah,
But seriously, man, thank you so much for doing this again. I'm just like nobody gets how honored I am just to sit here, have this conversation with a person who is slightly above my level. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
man.
You're totally above my level.
This could be a whole other show, but man, you are up there with the music knowledge like nobody else I know. Like you really bring
Oh,
it and you have a passion for it and I mean that's how we bonded anyways over our love of music. So, you know, much
well,
respect
I,
and thank you again for having me on.
I appreciate that again. Trust me, I'm learning from you. You're the you're the master. You're the sensei here.
It goes both ways. It goes both ways. Trust me.
Oh,
Trust
okay.
me.
Okay, then you know what? If Hip Hop Gods needs an executive assistant,
Yeah.
holla at Young Hip Hop
Okay.
God right here. Okay, but no, seriously, thank you, bro, for
Yeah.
doing this again.
No
And
doubt.
everyone watching, please subscribe, like, wait for episode 3 is going to be out next week, and you know, make sure to keep playing Quincy Jones for the celebration of his life, and make sure that everybody gets to honor him in the best way possible, and also check out my partner next to me, Hip Hop
Yep.
Gods. Best thing ever. Tell them where they can find you at, sir.
Oh man, I'm all over the place. Mixcloud, Instagram, Hip Hop Gods official. I'm on X. I'm around. YouTube. I'm everywhere.
Yeah, so it's impossible to avoid him.
Right.
Just remember
Basically.
that. Yeah, so just remember that no matter where you're going, he's going to be right
Yeah.
there.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, everybody. Peace out.